Alright, so today I want to rearrange some of my snakes in my racking systems. And it's kind of an interesting dilemma. If you're starting into ball pythons, I'd say what most people usually do is they buy a rack like the ones behind me. They can hold quite a few snakes. And you're really excited. You have all these empty tubs and you go on this shopping spree. And it's almost like Christmas. Every day you're buying a snake and filling up your rack. And probably what you don't realize is you get down the road into your first or second year producing a lot of hatchlings, and you have a whole bunch of really cool holdbacks, some really unique animals that you really want to hold back for future breeders, and you get to the point where you don't really have room for them. And that's where it was my first couple years. And the first couple years, I'd say it's a little bit easier because you can buy more racks and expand and expand. And I'm pretty much at the point right now where my whole entire reptile room is wall to wall with racks. And you get to the point where, you know, if you don't expand anymore, you have to make some decisions as far as what you're going to keep and what you're going to let go. And I kind of made some decisions these last few weeks, and I put some snakes up on Morphmarket. I sold some snakes over there, and now I have some empty tubs. Now I can move stuff around, and it's always, I'd say it's almost like, you know, breeding dogs, and you have a whole litter of puppies and you just love them all, and it's really difficult to get rid of them because you're so attached to all of them. And it's kind of the same way with snakes. You're really attached to the animals, and then you have to sell them to kind of replace them as you go. I'd say it's probably one of the things you probably don't think about when you're breeding ball pythons. I sold some females. I sold a pastel female. I probably normally would have kept that pastel female because it was a really good producer, but I really needed some extra space. So what I'm going to do today is I want to show you kind of the empty tubs that I have and how I'm going to rearrange my racking system and what snakes I'm going to move from the one tub to another. In a lot of cases, you're moving them from a smaller tub to a bigger tub, so it's really awesome actually giving the snakes a little bit more room. Alright, so I'm going to start with my most famous snake in the whole room. That is Bobby. And Bobby's been living down here in an ARS 5040 tub. And I'd say as far as, you know, the size of the snake to the tub, I'd say this is probably too small of a tub for this size of a snake. Definitely too small. And he's about half the size when I got him. So he actually kind of outgrew the tub quite a long time ago. And I've been just kind of dragging my feet as far as moving them and, you know, unloading one of my females. It's always really difficult to sell one of my snakes. And essentially what I did is I sold one of my female pastel breeders over here. It's kind of heartbreaking. I didn't really want to do it, but you get to the point where you just have to in order to, you know, accommodate some of these snakes that are growing and getting bigger. So Bobby here is getting a new home. He is so excited. So I want to move him, see if I can pick him up here and move him over to this other tub. He's gonna love it over here. Take a look at this, Bobby. Look at all that room, yeah. So essentially just the back part of the tub is heated over here. So if he actually needs to get away from the heat, he can actually come up here, up on the cool spot. He can actually probably curl up right here and stay off of the heat, so he can completely stay and then curl up here, or he can curl around kind of the water dish up here. So this is actually the perfect size for an adult ball python, the ARS 7030. It's a 70 series tubs, and there's actually 30 tubs to a rack. That's why they call it the 7030. And it's kind of interesting. Everyone asks me, does a snake need a hide in a tub like this? And essentially what it is the whole tub acts like the hide, and the snake is really comfortable in the hide most of the time. As a matter of fact, I used to have my ball pythons in glass aquariums, and they were always in the hide all the time. They would hardly ever come out, and this essentially replicates a really large living spot for a ball python. And I would say if you had any other kind of snake, like, you know, like some kind of a king snake, like a California king snake. I've had, you know, king snakes in these dark tubs, and they just do not like to be in a tub like this. They like kind of a more open where they can see out and kind of see what's going on. So this is Bobby's new home, and I think he's really going to like it in this really big tub. So a couple other things I actually have on my tubs. I actually have a feeding cart, so you can see Bobby doesn't eat that often. He's only had just a couple meals. As a matter of fact, he hasn't had a meal since the second week of February, and it's been like a month since he's eaten. He doesn't eat a whole lot. He's pretty much full grown, and if you feed him too much, he can actually get a little obese. And I've been offering him every week. As a matter of fact, I think I offered 3 times this week, and he just refused, which is kind of normal for a ball python. Sometimes they'll just, look at this one up here, sometimes they just really pound the rats all, one right after another, sometimes 4 or 5 in a week, and then sometimes they'll just fast for a really long time, and it doesn't really affect the health of the snake at all. Alright, so I actually have 5 holdbacks up here at the very top of my hatchling rack, and if you look at my hatchlings all the way down to here, this is the only ones I have left, and I'd say probably, 5 or 6 are sold pending the final payment before I ship them out, and most of these on the bottom, these are all empty. And over here in this rack, I actually have 1, 2, 3, and then 2 more 5 tubs that I have available now. I actually sold 2 scaleless head males, and then since I moved Bobby over, I actually have all the tubs I need for all of those grow outs. So what I'm going to do is I'm probably going to put all the tubs on the bottom and put the biggest snakes on top, and then the youngest ones on the bottom, and then kind of rotate them if they get really super big. As a matter of fact, I have this one that I want to move. This is kind of like almost, I'd say this one is probably next. I'm definitely going to have to move this one out. This is my lesser clown right here, and she is at the point where she really needs a bigger tub. You put them in here. These are essentially grow out tubs, and they'll actually breed in these tubs probably the first year or 2, and then once they start gaining some weight, you definitely have to move them out. The 50-40s, I've actually seen some people use the 50-40s where they use them for the life of the snake, but I'd say in most cases I don't really feel comfortable getting a really big snake in a small tub like that. I like to move them over here, and probably what I'll do eventually, I know I've had a lot of people ask me about my normal females. I'll probably eventually move out some of my normal females and replace it with some of this bigger stuff like my lesser clown. Alright, so I pulled out the tub on the top. Actually, I was looking at both of these tubs and I realized that I don't have any substrate in those top 2 tubs. So I actually had to make up a whole block of coconut husk substrate. This is actually 1 block of Pro Coco right here. Fills a really good sized tub, and it goes a really long way, especially in these smaller tubs. That's kind of the advantage of using the smaller tubs, is you can save a lot on the Pro Coco. That's probably the biggest advantage of matching the tub size to the snake. So essentially what I do is I like to put a lot of substrate right in pretty much around the cup. I go about halfway up the cup, and it really depends on the size of the snake. So if I have a really big snake, a lot of times what I'll do is I'll leave a really big spot for a hot spot. But in this case, I'm actually going to put in some pretty small hatchlings in here, just to grow them out. So I'll put a little bit more, leave a little bit of room for a hot spot, and then just kind of build it up just like this. And then usually what I do is just add a little bit of water here, and then I'll put it right into the rack. And then normally what I do is when I go through my racks and I'm changing all the substrate, I'll put a little clip, usually on the left over here, and then that kind of shows me that I actually changed the substrate. And what I need to do is I need to go through all these racks and change out all the substrate in all these tubs. It's been almost a month since I replaced them all, so I need to go through them all and change all the substrate probably in the next few days. Alright, so take a look at this. I actually took all that new substrate and I dumped it into this empty boa tub, and it works fantastic for holding my new substrate. And essentially what I do is every day I'll go through and clean a few tubs, and I have the substrate right there ready to grab. I don't have to really do anything as far as moving totes or anything like that. It just kind of slides right in. I could actually get another snake like a boa or something, but it works really well just to hold extra substrate. It's really awesome. So I kind of want to show you what I have up here. This is probably one of my favorite holdbacks right here. Take a look at this one. Look at how big he's getting. He's getting pretty big in this tub. This is actually a lesser scaleless head male. Take a look at that beauty. That is an awesome snake. That is going to be a really good breeder. And essentially this is going to replace my scaleless head that actually had a regular scaleless head and another one that was 50% het caramel albino. So if you take a look at this tub, he's definitely has a lot more room in this. I'd say this is probably the ideal size of a tub for a snake like this. He can grow up quite a bit in here. I'd say he could probably grow up maybe a year or two in this tub until he's getting close to, well, since he's a male, he probably won't get as big as a female. And the interesting thing is if you actually take a look at the substrate, it's a month old and it's still really clean, not too bad. But you can tell it kind of starts getting kind of a funky smell. It doesn't smell like the fresh coconut husk, and it seems like if I go through and replace all the coconut husk, then I have a better feeding response from a lot of these snakes. So essentially what I'm going to do is I actually have old feeding cards there from some of my other ones, and I can take off the holdbacks here and just move. This one's actually named Crusher. Crusher is my lesser scaleless head 2019 male. And then I'll take the feeding card from his little tub over here, and look at how this guy's been eating really good. You can take a look at that, how many he's eaten. It's actually the second week of March. He's actually had 2 live rats just this week. He's been eating really good, doing fantastic. So I actually have some other ones up here. I can kind of show you what I have as far as all my other snakes. I actually have Mango, which is my female triple het albino pied clown. Take a look at this one. I am really excited about this project. And this one actually looks like, let's see if I can get her without her biting me. She's looking like she's gonna snap me. This is actually produced from my albino pied crossed with my clown female. So this is a triple het albino pied clown. If I breed 2 of these together, I actually have 3 females and 1 male, and I'll be able to hopefully breed some of these probably in about 2 years, which would be pretty awesome. And I'll get clowns and pieds and albinos and albino clowns and albino pieds, and a whole bunch of stuff out of those. That's going to be really awesome. So I'm actually going to move this one over here. Over here. This one is named Mango, a female triple het. And I want to move the feeding card with this one too. This is, let's see, this is Mango. These are awesome, these feeding cards, and then I put the Velcro on the back. They're fantastic. And then I actually have 3 more holdbacks, and they're all triple het albino pied clowns. This one's named Lucky, and take a look at this one, how big this one is. It's interesting, some of these, it's weird because they all pretty much, some of these started really good and they're pounding a lot of rats, and then pretty much all of these have been off of food. They haven't really been eaten probably for the last 2 or 3 weeks. You know, these ball pythons are kind of funny. Sometimes they'll just really plow the food, and then sometimes they'll just randomly go off of food, which is kind of interesting. So I actually have a whole bunch of brand new feeding cards. I can go through and replace the ones that that I'm replacing here. And these little name tags here, these are actually, I printed them out with my label maker and then used like a magnetic tape on the back. And the weird thing about these is I actually bought some of this magnetic tape on Amazon, and it is really cheap and flimsy and really sticky and gooey. It's not like the magnetic tape you can get at Home Depot. So this one is Rusty. Rusty is my male triple het. Look at how big this guy is getting, really looking good. And these guys, I haven't really handled them that much, so I'm surprised they're not kind of snapping at me. He's looking really good though, really beautiful. It's kind of interesting how the triple het kind of breaks up the pattern on these. If you kind of look at the belly, you can almost see a little bit of, I don't know if you can see the tracks on that one or not. Not really, you can't really see the het pied markers on a lot of these, which is kind of interesting. This guy's getting the tub with the new substrate in it. And I'll move his card over here. And his name tag, he is Rusty, 2019 male, het albino, het pied, het clown. So I have one more triple het, and this is actually another female. I actually had another male and a female that I sold. Didn't really, it's like you always want to keep them all, and then, you know, people offer you money and then you need the room, and I didn't really want to hold back that many, but I got 3 triple hets. This is a really beautiful female, 3 females, so I'll really be able to crank out some really interesting combos. And if I actually hit the albino pied clown, I was actually thinking of taking that triple visual and then breeding it back to something like an axanthic or something like that, which would be really cool. Maybe, you know, years and years down the road, it should be pretty awesome. So that one is my last one that I'm moving over. And I'll move the card on this one. And then, let's see, I will move the name. So it's kind of interesting because on a lot of these tubs, I kind of had different systems as far as the clips. So for the clips, essentially what I do is I feed a snake and then I'll put it over to the right, and then I'll just keep feeding and feeding. Sometimes I'll do a live, sometimes I'll do a frozen thawed, and then I'll come back and I'll double check. I'll make sure it's not like stuck in the water, make sure he's actually eating it, and then if he has, then I'll move it over to the center. I'll pull out the card and then I'll just mark on the card. Look at this albino pie. It hasn't eaten all year in the last 3 months. Some of these just drive me crazy. It's kind of crazy. And for some reason, I don't know what it is, when I start breeding ball pythons, it seems like almost all of them go off of food except these hatchlings. And from here, what I'm going to do is I'm actually going to move all these hatchlings that I still have left up to the top. And I basically just keep moving them up and condensing them up to the top as I sell off all the other ones and kind of shrink it down. You know, probably I have, you know, maybe 2 months and I'll have, you know, more hatchlings to fill this rack, which would be pretty awesome. All right, so it is time for the question of the day. And Green Machine Fitness asks, if a female ball python lays 1 egg, how long does it take for her to lay the rest of the eggs? And that is a very good question. I'd say it pretty much depends on how many eggs that snake has in her belly. And for a really large snake, sometimes it can be up to 15 eggs. And I'd say probably for a first-time breeder, usually 6 or 7 eggs is pretty common. And a lot of times I'll actually go up to my snakes during breeding season. I'm always checking twice a day, looking for eggs, almost like an Easter egg hunt. And sometimes I'll actually see some eggs under a female. I'll unwrap the female from around the eggs, and sure enough, if you look in the belly, you should always look in the belly of the female when you're taking her from the eggs. Sometimes you can actually see 1 or 2 eggs still in the female, and usually I'd say they come out pretty fast. I'd say usually within an hour that snake will actually lay those eggs, but in some cases you can actually get an egg-bound situation, which can be very dangerous for the female. I actually had a couple egg-bound snakes, and sometimes it can take as long as 24 hours for that egg to come out. And in some cases, if it's completely plugged, sometimes you can run into some situations where you have to actually maybe bring the snake to a vet and have them intervene. But I'd say if that egg doesn't come out in a couple days, then you might have a problem and you might have to bring the snake to the vet for kind of an emergency procedure. But I'd say in most cases, usually within an hour, maybe an hour or 2 at the latest, those eggs will all come out of the snake. So that is pretty much it. Thanks for watching, and I will see you in the next video.